Hey there. Welcome to the CoachC podcast. This is Coach C, Christine Nielsen with Contrast Results Group. And we have a very special coach on our podcast today. Today, I would like you to meet Dr. Benjamin Ritter, who works currently, I believe you're in New York City, but Live for Yourself Consulting, LFY Consulting. And Dr. Benjamin Ritter works with entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, mostly in the arena of career change, really creating work that's aligned with who you are and your purpose. And as you know, at Contrast, we talk about that all the time. What's your purpose? What's your vision? And what do you really want with your life? So welcome to the show today. Thank you for joining the CoachC podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think because I am all over the U.S., it gets a little confusing where I'm based. But right now I'm in Chicago.
Oh, you're in Chicago. I said New York.
Yes, soon I'll be in Austin. But I have clients in New York and on the West Coast and East Coast and such. So, I was there pretty recently too. I don't know how soon I'm going to be traveling there though now.
But, you guys are still fairly seriously locked down. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so you're still fairly seriously locked down. How are you? And you also have a big change and transition coming up in your life. So tell us more about what you're doing.
Yeah. And specifically related to how the pandemic impacted my life. I've been working remote for years. And so I was like, okay, we're working from home. How much could this really impact me? If anything, actually business has picked up because I think career transition and change and fulfillment is really important right now. When trauma happens, people tend to look for new solutions, and the pain that they were feeling becomes too great. So they want to make another change that maybe is more within their control than what's going on outside of themselves. I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. Everything will be great. But then the loss of routine, the loss of structure from my day actually really did impact me pretty severely. And it was stopping and being aware of that and understanding, okay, so what's going on here? Why do I feel different right now? Why do I not feel like myself? And it was because I used to leave my apartment to go shopping, to go to the gym, to see friends. And I would have these different pockets of the day that would allow my brain to reset or live in a different space. And I didn't have that anymore. We all don't have that anymore. Didn't have that. We were stuck inside or stuck within a certain block radius, and we didn't see certain people. We didn't have the structure that we used to have. So I had to stop and start rebuilding my routines. I had to section off my office with a new carpet. I got a new rug. I got a new monitor. I got a new desk. I had a little, I got a bunch of gym stuff, and I put that in a special section of my house. I made sure I started going for walks at different times of the day. Yeah. I got a work only cup, and then I also started scheduling in my social time. And I actually found that one of my favorite things to do is to stream live musicians, not live, but recorded live shows of musicians on YouTube on my TV, and not watch TV, just have that in the background. And I would feel like I'm out, I'm interacting, I'm mingling. And it also felt like a break. And those things really, really helped in a lot of ways.
I think I love what you talked about in terms of shaking up your daily rituals. So we believe very firmly in setting yourself up powerfully for your day, setting your intention. And through this period of pandemic, one of the things that people who, really create a powerful intention for their day and live by those things, take that walk, take that break, try to create new things on a daily basis instead of, doing the same thing over and over every day, because it starts to feel like Groundhog Day. And as you said, that really creates, it wreaks havoc with your emotional state, your heightened levels of anxiety. We're dealing with so much uncertainty right now. So creating rituals and intentions on a daily basis really helps people gain some clarity, some focus, knowing, what inside of the uncertainty can I take back? What problems do I have that have solutions that I can take? And the ones that don't have solutions, we're not looking to solve those today. So inside of the work that you're doing with people in their careers, with intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs, share with us a little bit about what you're helping people do to, really alleviate the anxiety and create, what should they be focusing on, or what's the right opportunity for them? How are you working with your clients on that?
Yeah, and before I dive into that, I want to mention too that you've hinted at this balance between novelty and routine and structure. And I think life, especially a meaningful life, involves a balance between both of them. Like you have novelty, which is the challenge, your opportunity to innovate. It comes naturally with growth, right? If you have a business and you're challenging yourself and trying new things and growing, that's ultimately going to expose yourself to new opportunities and new, I guess, ways for you to innovate and be creative. But then at the same time, you need this consistency and this foundation of alignment to your values and to your passions and what you truly care about, and some sort of schedule that allows you to make like measured growth towards what you actually care about. And I'm currently going through, and I think we'll talk about it, this, like, the fact that I'm growing but there's no novelty. And so that can lead to a feeling of being stuck or a lack of growth, which I really like. One of my values, right, is growth, is learning, is knowledge. And so if I don't have that, I'm not really living who I am and myself. So like contentness is not a value of mine. Yes. Growth and challenge, success, like those are more important to me. So that involves then how do I shake this up? How do I start challenging myself in ways that I'm not? And I think we'll talk about that, but that's actually an important part that I bring to my clients, right? You initially have to find that clarity in terms of like what you really care about. Like what intention do you want to start each day with? What podcasts do you want to listen to? What books do you want to start reading? What types of people do you want to spend time with? And why is that important? How does that relate to your values and what you're aspiring for in terms of your career? And very often that clarity isn't there. So then they don't know what books to read. They don't know what podcasts to listen to, right? They're not listening to us, right? They should be. It's like, so yes, listen to us. If you repeat it, more people will do it. But it's so interesting. So they're living almost like they're floating. Yeah. And so that initial clarity helps them set those attentions to their values. So then that builds on itself, right? It builds momentum, it builds motivation, which is really important because too often people avoid or procrastinate because they don't have clarity and aren't surrounding themselves with the right people and information to inspire them and help them grow. And so initially it's that big component is, why do you care about this? What steps do we need to take you to actually start implementing and build that routine that we mentioned? But then also, what novelty do you need to experience from the information and the people that you're speaking with to help you start building momentum, consistency, and then ultimately level you up towards what you want to care about. And then there are some other steps after that, but I think that's a really important component. I'll let that sit for a second.
Yeah, no, let's unpack that a little bit. And you said something around you used two words that I think are phenomenal, and I think our listeners will really appreciate this. One was the state of inertia. So you talked about inertia, and then you talked about momentum. And when we're in inertia, kind of that floating state, what's really going on for people is uncertainty, a lack of focus, a lack of clarity, and then it shows up like, I'm beating myself up because I didn't get done what I wanted to get done today. Well, did you actually say you were going to get done certain things, or did you just sit inside of like too much going on or a state of overwhelm? And did you have that clarity of focus? And what practices are you putting in place to make sure you've got that? And I think that's really important, because to move into momentum, you have to understand that comes from knowing what you want and that piece of clarity. And when I ask people, what do you want? I often get a list of everything they don't want. Are you dealing with a lot of that as well in your own practice and with your clients? Are you kind of peeling apart the layers of what people don't want to get to the access points of what do they really want if they were left to dream and left to really vision what is the purpose for their work, the meaningfulness, or their lives?
It's a lot easier for clients to say, this is what's frustrating me. This is what I don't want in my life. And so you have to look at like visioning. You have to do future visioning and mapping, but you also need to look at what have you experienced so far that has given you some information. So usually it's, the pain points are a little bit more stronger. They focus more on them because a lot of times when someone doesn't have clarity, they're stuck in this like victimization mindset. So they're focused on the things that are going wrong for them, the things that they don't like. And they're also stuck in this fear of potential change and challenge and doubt, and potentially that they don't deserve what they actually think they want, or they're going to fail at it, or they're not good enough for it. So a lot of times these are the thoughts we're unpacking initially to be able to get to that future visioning and mapping. And so a lot of time is spent on understanding where they've been successful, what their strengths are, their story, their journey, because that's brought them to where they are today. Yes. And very often the stories, like the negative stories, tend to be more vibrant, more in front of mind than their actual wins and successes. And when I was studying personal and professional development, one of my favorite books was one called Reframing. Mm-hmm. And it's just this practice of, really taking ownership of the negativity that you're placing in how you label yourself. So if you have a memory that is truly impacting you, like right now, right, there could be a lot of trauma. People have lost their jobs, maybe they've lost loved ones. It's looking at that memory and taking its power away. Like you have this vision in your mind, and so you can scrub it, you can pixelate it, you can put it in a box and blow it up. But it's saying that, like, I have control over my thoughts, and where do I want to focus my time and energy? And it's not on this trauma. It should be on these opportunities for growth and this vision I have for myself. And if you don't make that mental switch to say, I want to spend more of my time thinking about these things, it's going to be really hard to be intentional towards what you truly care about.
Yes. I love that you're talking about this, because one of the principles that we use is often rewriting your story. And, I have been coaching for a very long time, and I have had to rewrite and up-level my story on many, many occasions. And the reality is neuroscience has now uncovered that 56% of the stories we tell ourselves about what happened never really happened. So we write these stories for ourselves, and we label ourselves, and we make these decisions about who we are and what is possible in our lives based on false information. And I think that in and of itself, when you unpack all of those things, it allows for more clarity and the ability to release what are you really up for. But until you rewrite that story and reframe it and change the way that you've held it or been a victim of it in many cases, then you don't have access to creating that future. And that's a big principle. So when you're working with people with high levels of uncertainty, high levels of fear because they've lost their job, they're in the middle of a reinvention, and they're rewriting that story, what are you can't do that unless you've done that yourself. So number one, I know you've done the work on yourself to be able to get to that place, because unless you've experienced that, you can't tell people that. It's like you can show people how to ride a bicycle all you want, until they have the distinction of balance, they're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. And that's something they have to have as an experience. So share with us a little bit about what your journey has been like, and how you've had to rewrite your own story to get to where you are today.
Yeah. And kind of like when my story started, I had some time to reflect. A major part of it was during a recession, and a major part of it was when I was also in school. So it gave me an opportunity to stop. And I think right now everyone has a gift, and it's that the world is allowing you to, if you have a job that you don't like, you feel stuck in, it's allowing you to work from home. So you have more time to yourself. If you've currently lost a job, the benefits right now from the government are actually pretty lucrative. And so right now, instead of feeling like you need to be frantic and make a change immediately, take the space that you have and do some of the self-work that we're talking about in terms of reflecting and focusing on what you care about and unpacking your story, because that will set you up for success. I mean, you will stop fearing failure or judgment. You will start focusing on yourself and being more present. And I had to go through that multiple times. I think I still stop every month and reflect on my alignment, because sometimes I feel stuck and like I'm not making not moving forwards the way I want to, where I start feeling lonely again, or I start comparing myself to other people. And those are just symptoms of I need to stop and realign and get some greater clarity again. And so this all kind of started when I was in undergrad, so a while ago, and I wanted to be a professional soccer player. And it was an obsession of mine. I was very achievement oriented and driven. You see this a lot. If you're an entrepreneur, I have to, get bought out. Or if you're a VP, I have to become a CEO, or so all of a sudden now you have these goals that you're driven towards that become your singular focus. And my singular focus was to become a professional athlete, right? An easy one. Of course I'm going to succeed, right? But basically, I would practice 3 times a day. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. I wouldn't hang out with people because I didn't think they were related to my goals. So I actually became a little socially awkward because I wasn't interacting with others. I became really judgmental of other people that weren't also focused on these specific goals and were wasting their time hanging out with people and having fun and drinking and doing all that stuff. And I became this very enclosed individual that didn't develop external skills other than outside of this one focus, which was to play a sport. And then I lost it. And then I failed, right? And then I didn't make it. And I tried a variety of things. I tried going overseas for a while. I had a couple different surgeries to help myself get better. Like I had a really big hip problem that I tried to fix. My 21st birthday, by the way, a day before my 21st birthday, I had hip surgery. And so I was bedridden for a couple of weeks. And it was all because I wanted to pursue this dream of mine. And there was a ton of other injuries, but it really formed me to who I am today, because when I lost that, I realized I didn't have an identity. I realized I didn't know my values. I realized that I didn't have a social group around me that supported me and helped me in any way, shape, or form, especially towards what I thought I would care about, because I didn't really care about it. And that really, I was mentally and physically hurting and in pain and developed a couple issues because of that obsession. Yeah. And I had a choice. I could stay there. I could ignore everything and try to keep going, or I can reinvent myself.
Yeah.
And luckily there was a thought in my mind that said, you can do more than this. You should do more than this. The world needs you to do more than this. And now you need to figure out how. And so I started studying everything in personal and professional development, just to create an identity, just to uncover who I was and rediscover who I was. And that led me to just finding a new obsession of just becoming a better, full individual. So 4.5 years go by, 5 years go by, and I'm finally happy with who I am socially, who I am mentally, who I am physically, what I cared about, what my passions were. And I forgot about this whole field. And I just went to go live a normal life, right? To get a job, to add value, to create a positive social impact in the world, and just to have friends, and just to keep growing and challenging. Because one of the main things that came out of this whole time in my life was, I need to keep learning. I need to keep challenging myself. I need to be uncomfortable. I need to find ways to keep building skills, and I need to have balance. So there's great to have a passion. It's great to have a purpose, but find your passion or find your purpose, I believe, is one of the worst bits of advice I ever was given, because I misinterpreted it. Didn't have the context that it needed. Right. The context isn't, dedicate your entire life to something. It's actually find what you truly care about. And it doesn't matter what your goals are, as long as they relate to what you care about and provide you some level of happiness and fulfillment along the way. Right. It's not a milestone. It's a journey.
Yes.
And so then I just started living my life. But it was funny. After, I had a job, I went to grad school. I cared a lot about public health policy. I thought I was going to lobby for the dismantlement of sugar subsidies and change the world of public health and help people eat right and provide information about, a positive, healthy lifestyle, and attack the corruption pharmaceutical industry. So there's this theme of do good, social justice, which is pretty powerful. And I had all these jobs lined up with public health departments, with the federal government. And I got out of grad school in 2010, and it was a lovely recession, and every single governmental agency basically canceled every job that I got. So I had all this federal funding for all these different positions with the CDC, with the Illinois Department of Public Health. And I would sign on a dotted line. This happened 4 times in 2.5 years. And they would cancel the position literally that week. So it was an interesting time of, this is what I want to do. This is what I think I want to do. The world's not going to let you do it right now.
I love that you're saying that, because there's so many things that are extraordinarily valuable for our listeners right now. If you have this extremely powerfully dream, and it's compelling you forward, and then you need to reevaluate that. One, it could be extremely painful, but can also be really freeing, because in that process of reinventing yourself and getting these government jobs and seeing that it's for some reason that wasn't it, but you weren't listening. those weren't for you, or those things would have actually come to fruition and you'd be working in a government job in the CDC or who. Imagine now if you had one of those jobs with what the world is faced with in some pandemic. I can imagine you'd be doing incredible work, but that wasn't for you.
Mm-hmm. And so like
we need to understand that and go, well, what is for me, instead of, because you could have just beaten yourself up and beaten your head against a wall and gone, I'm going to force this. I'm going to make this happen. No matter what, this has to go through. And when there's a lot of force, I find that's, there's a lot of opportunity. But if we keep forcing for an outcome that doesn't want to happen, it might not be for you. And there's other things that are for you, and you're not listening. You're not paying attention. So,
yeah. And if we stop at this point in the story and reflect back, like, my dedication to soccer taught me grit, taught me how to hustle, taught me how to lead. It taught me how to structure my day. It taught me how to work towards a goal. It taught me how to hold myself accountable. There's so many things. And then my time in public health, because I worked for the Illinois Department so I actually walked in for a volunteer position when I was in school. I convinced them to hire me part-time. And so they hired me part-time. So I worked for them for a bit, and I got some really cool experience with like H1N1 and a bunch of stuff, and realized how bureaucratic it was. And so like each time I would get stopped in the process of these positions, I would take a moment, try to make it work, reflect back on what did I gain and why wasn't this for me? And with soccer, it was I wasn't going to make a big enough impact. With public health, it was things are too slow. There's too many constrictions. I can't do what I want to do in this area. And so it's like I constantly afterwards, when I reevaluate, find where it was misaligned personally, and can also find the strengths and the things that it taught me. Yeah. And what was really neat about the public health opportunities was even though they didn't work out during that time frame where I was trying to find a full-time position during a recession, I used my connections to sit on the alumni board of my past university for the School of Public Health. And during that time, there was an opportunity to apply for, it was life coaching aimed at public health professionals to help them become more passionate and productive in their positions. And so I applied for this grant and got it from the federal government, from the Maternal and Child Health Department, and it was received 6 months of free life coaching during a time in my life where it was, I think, truly impactful for my career. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, I was out and about at a bar during this lovely recession time when I was trying to find a full-time gig, working a bunch of side jobs. And I was just talking to a bunch of people in a room using the information I learned when I was developing, when I lost myself. Like I was using a lot of the social dynamics information, how to be, have a spotlight on you in a room, how to approach strangers, how to create relationships and connection. Someone stops me and says, I know exactly what you're doing. Are you by yourself? Like, yes, like you need to meet my boss tomorrow. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, just trust me, meet my boss. So he brings me into the same bar the next day for a meeting with like 8 people at a table. And I get hired as a nationwide men's coach to run boot camps on the weekends. And it was like all of a sudden now, when coaching was not a part of my life, I now have a full-time life coach for half a year, and I'm getting paid to coach on the weekends. And I still at this point don't think I want to be a coach, and don't think that coaching is for me. I see it as a part-time way to make some money and develop as an individual.
Okay.
So that was kind of, again, like a little hint, like, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this. And I wasn't really paying attention to it.
No, you were paying attention. And and so many people are going through that because they're focused on something that is actually out of alignment. And you will find those things that align with who you are and your purpose. And when you're paying attention, it will hit you like a ton of bricks. Like, this is it. And
you're showing up. You're going out there.
I had that moment myself. I was actually in the pharmaceutical industry, and we were launching this drug product, and I was 21 years old, and I'm sitting in my chair. I'm one of the top reps in the company very, very early on. And I'm sitting in my chair, and they'd hired this transformational coach. Well, nobody knew what that was then. And this is many years ago. And I realized when he started speaking about, shifting your perception and allowing for what's possible and standing in what's possible and creating a new future and a new reality for yourself, I went, this is not my seat. That's my seat. And it sounds like at some point between the part-time gig of coaching, when did you get it? When did you actually realize this is my seat? This is what I want with my life.
Because it was funny when I stopped working for that other company. I thought I still had a lot of information to give to the world, so I wrote a book and realized that no one was going to buy the book because I was a nobody. I didn't have a brand. So I used all my information in my MBA in entrepreneurial management and my experience in coaching to just launch a business with someone to basically sell my book. And that business, though, went on for 5 years and it wasn't aligned with who I was. And it was part-time and wasn't really making a lot of money. And I was also at the same time, I got a full-time job working in healthcare. So again, 6.5 years passed. So it's like, finally though, so about 3 years into my full-time job in healthcare, I was selected and I never felt aligned, right? I felt like I like what I'm doing. It's value aligned, but I never wanted to work in hospital administration. I kept looking for other jobs, right? I kept getting job offers and going to my boss and getting a raise and like kept looking for the right thing. Oh, this isn't right. So I was always searching. And then but there's always an excuse to stay, always an excuse. They'd increased my pay, or at this point, they selected me for 16 months of leadership training. So one of the first rounds in our entire system. So I'm like, do I want to dedicate 16 months of my time here? But again, an excuse to stay. But it was powerful because I got paired up with the director of people, like our head guru, and we became really close. And I was like, your job is to coach all the senior executives. Like that's your job. And and at the same time, like I don't feel fulfilled at work. I feel stuck. I feel like our leadership is misaligned and not truly supportive. There's no recognition. I've gone through 3 CEOs, 3 directors. There's been 3 acquisitions. Like it was just this huge plethora of change and a lack of, I think, constructive leadership. And then so I'm paired up with him, and at the same time, they promote me to an executive level position. So now I'm sitting on the executive team and exposed to senior leadership, like deficiencies and things like that. And as a youngin', see opportunities to grow with this background in personal and professional development.
Right.
And I'm walking into work, by the way, it was that good of a job. Yeah. And I'm executive, and I'm just feeling stuck and I'm feeling burdened. And I feel like I have this world on my shoulders, and I look around and every other person walking by me looks the same exact way. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, what are you doing?
This isn't it.
What are you doing? This isn't it. And so I sat back and said, what is it that I truly need to learn right now to get to where I want to go? And where I wanted to go, I figured out was helping individuals, was in leadership development, was that person in a room that could help someone feel unstuck with their job and find ways to fix it. And for me, I had 3 different paths to go. It wasn't automatically coaching. It was, I'm just going to go work for my organization with this guy because he's awesome. And I get to do the stuff that I love to do. And that's the path of least resistance. But ultimately that didn't work out for a variety of reasons. Even though they were really supportive at the beginning, it didn't work out because everybody lost their jobs because we got acquired again. Right. And the second thing was I looked for positions, but it was half my pay. And that didn't seem like something I needed to do. It was an option, but not something I needed to do. The next path was, I know how to launch a business. I was a part-time coach for a while. I can make this work, and I'll do this long enough. I'll become credible in it that maybe someone will want to hire me along the way as well. So then I have multiple opportunities. So I went for me, instant credibility, go back and get my doctorate. I get to study the field. I get to publish in it. People then will look at me as a youngin' that, with this limited career experience and maybe take me credit, maybe see me as more credible, despite the fact that I was coaching at that time for like 6 years, 7 years. But again, not very long compared to yourself. But
not bad, old Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, you have more experience. I will pitch my hat to you.
It's okay. It's all good.
I'll pitch my hat. So basically that was the start of the journey. And, I formed LFY Consulting, Live for Yourself Consulting, on the back of a napkin, flying to LA for one of my weeks of classes for my doctoral program, and it's been growth from there. I left healthcare in the beginning of 2018, like literally the end of January, finished my doctorate at the middle of that year. And it's been picking up momentum and speed ever since. Last year was incredible. And even this year, which I think is a huge milestone, and I kind of hinted at it, people have been hiring me. Like not just for contract jobs, but like literally reaching out and being like, we want you to come on board and run our leadership development program, or, be a coach for our entire organization. And like these opportunities from having nothing, from no experience and things like that, I think are a greater testament to the fact that I'm in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah. Now, you said so many really incredible things inside of that. How many people right now are feeling, before COVID hit, they were on that hamster wheel, or they were stuck and they weren't fully satisfied. They weren't fully fulfilled. This pandemic has given people the opportunity of true reinvention. Because if that's not it, and the universe just put us all in a big old timeout, that's what I call it. We're all on a timeout right now, and we're resetting. So if we're resetting, digging into what is most important, what is my true value that I want to contribute right now? And reinvention, as you just stated, it can look multiple ways. It doesn't have to be that, all of a sudden you go from one thing and you're completely transformed into a whole new thing. It takes steps along the pathway of what you just pointed to. It's like road A, road B, road C, or a combination thereof. And I think people listening to this really can use that sage advice that you just provided, which is, how do you marry what you're passionate to, what you want, and make money at that? How do you build that business? Because a lot of people don't understand the business building elements that come behind it. It's not necessarily easy. You're not going to wave a magic wand and somebody's going to hand you a contract for $1 million and you're set for life. It doesn't look like that. So what are the things that you work with people, and what do you say about those parts of the process? Because there's the transformational part inside where you're rewiring your story and you're standing for yourself and you're really truly elevating your own confidence. And then there's the other part where you have to put certain things in place to make those dreams a reality versus just I'm going to sit on the couch and hope that, my dream job or my dream life shows up.
Yeah. And it's a balance of reacting and acting. I mean, I'd say that the coaching practice was one of the first times that I was able to act because I had the skills needed. I saw the path that I could take. I had enough career experience to really make knowledgeable decisions or more knowledgeable decisions, where in previously, it was more so I had to react to current market conditions, to jobs that were presented to me. And sometimes we do have to react. And hopefully, though, with an understanding of who we are, we can react in a way that's more aligned with who we feel we want to be. But continuously working towards this time when we can actually then act, where we have enough career capital, we have enough expertise, we have an environment around us that suits us so that we can take full control of our career potential and the opportunities that are available to us. And it's kind of like this idea where, so I mentor a lot of college students and high school students sometimes and new founders. And I remind them, running a business, you have to look at it like you just got an entry level position, or you just became an intern somewhere. You do need to put in the time. You do need to learn how the organization works, how your business works, how the market works, how your customer thinks. And that can be a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then you'll get promoted. And so in your business, right, you will have learned enough to promote yourself to a new level. And the same thing happens. And there are no shortcuts. And especially when you run a business, I think people think that a business is a shortcut. It's full autonomy. It's going to be easy. You're going to make money. No, if anything, it's harder than working for an organization because there's no safety. There's greater risk. It's all you. You don't have the benefit of actually pulling from expertise from around you or the support of an organization. And so setting that expectation at the beginning, when I work with clients, or if I'm even telling my story or just giving any sort of mentorship, I think is really important. This is going to take time. What are you doing in your life right now to basically give yourself what you would get working in an organization? So are you connecting with people above you and having meetings with them? Are you building processes and structure that would make things easier for you? So yes, you have to be effective in the beginning. So you have to just do a lot to find out what works. But when you find out what works, if you're aware enough and tracking data, you then can become efficient. So then you can start scaling back your time. And that's like when you start a new position, the first 6 months can be intense, at an organization, because you're learning everything. You're taking in all this information, you're learning the processes. The same thing happens in a business, but it almost happens every time you level up. So it's like, you start making money, great. So now you have some idea of what works, and then you start making more money. Then you have to refigure out what works again. And then, then maybe you get more media attention. So then you need to figure out what you have to so it's this constant influx and relaxation, an influx and relaxation.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way that you put that, because it's a push-pull. It's like you do have to push forward and lean into certain things and really dive deep. And I call that the space or the state of concentration, to learn, get the experience, and understand the context that you're working inside of in an organization, or if you're creating your own organization. And then it's the step back and reset, reevaluate, and understand. It's like, the ability to clear your head and breathe through and look at what is this providing for me, and is this aligned? And if you're not constantly checking in, it's very easy to get very stuck in the day-to-day stuff and drive down. And I think a lot of people right now during COVID have spent a lot more time working very hard and not necessarily working very smart. So putting in extra hours in the day and trying to balance all these balls are somewhat of a like trying to find your value. How do I add value at work? Am I appreciated? Do you see my purpose? Talk to us a little bit about when people are on that precipice of questioning the value that they're bringing to their organization and how that impacts them and their career, and what you say about that.
Mm-hmm. I also love what you just said about when you're stuck in the muck of things, you can't have a high level view.
No.
It's just impossible. And it's when you're constantly trying to solve problems and do work and you're overworked, you're not going to be able to sit back and say what works, and constantly need to almost build that into your own routine. And like you said, with COVID right now, a lot of time work, and people are working longer hours. Like it's funny, right? You're working from home, but studies are showing that they're working like three more hours a day. And I constantly I start these prospecting calls at new clients, and they're like, I'm working more than I ever have before. My boss is demanding that I work. And it's like you're not setting expectations, set boundaries, set a routine for yourself where I'm available during this. Like, take control of your life and your professional,
yes.
when it relates to your professional life. And to your point, in terms of what do you do when you feel like that your work doesn't matter anymore? What do you feel when you feel that disconnect between the value of your work? And when I work with clients, I can't say this right away. I tend to say this in like the first session, but it's a balance of changing your perception of what you're currently doing, and then also working towards what you feel like you're more aligned to and what you feel like you kind of want to strive for and aspire to be. This idea that like, I will be happy when is a mistake. Yeah, you're shaking your head because it's
bullshit.
It's bullshit. And if you can't be happy right now where you're at, you are missing out on something big.
Yes.
And so I go, when I work with clients in this area, we look at this theory of job crafting, which is job satisfaction relates to your social connections at work, the work you're doing, and the meaning that you feel behind your work. And 3 categories can be applied to anyone at any time, at any job, to improve how happy they are at any given time. And I also throw in this idea of what do you want to be challenged by? What opportunities do you want to create for yourself? And I put that together and create this career sweet spot for individuals. But if you think that you need to leave your job to be happier and more fulfilled, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity for yourself. And so how do you reset expectations that you have towards your boss? It's a huge one. Just wipe the slate clean and start seeing your boss as someone that actually has a positive intent and purpose for you, but just has a different story. Or your coworkers, the person that's a bad apple in the office, the same thing. If you're going into work and resenting and feeling negative towards the environment that you're in, that's your feeling. So we initially start working on that.
Well, and it's so funny because so many people think that feeling is, it becomes the truth. And it's the way it is. And that's the way my boss is. And when people are stuck in that, they're that way and they're not getting out, there's no freedom. There's no opportunity to create what's next. There's no new possibility for that. And so let's just really quickly talk about shaking up the snow globe. We're gonna end and wrap this up in a couple of minutes, but you're also looking at what new opportunities lie ahead for you. So you're currently living in Chicago, you're in your office in Chicago, and you have clients all over the world. And then what did you decide? You made some pretty big life choices recently. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this past year, I really focused on what is going to crack the code for business and make it so I don't really have to put so much energy in and happen. So now things are pretty much self-sustaining and growing. I focused on developing a stronger network of people that are just crushing it in a lot of areas, but I feel really aligned with, and that happened. So now I have this group of friends that I don't think I've ever had, like such a strong knit group of friends. I have a really positive relationship and partnership. I've never been, really closer to my family, and I have a wonderful apartment. I have a great life right now in Chicago. And I'm like, ooh, how can I grow next? What haven't I done?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, let's leave everything and let's move to a whole new city in the midst of a pandemic.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And it was just this check mark that I really wanted to hit. And it was like, what haven't I done? And I think my life, I've done it in a variety of ways. Like I was on a reality show, like I've traveled to certain places, and I'm constantly looking for opportunities to test myself and to give myself new experiences. And that could, and that's you have to balance that, because this desire for novelty could impact your relationships, could impact your business, and things like that. But so it's at a good balance, at a good space.
Yeah.
And moving is just this opportunity for me that I can like shake up the snow globe. I know everything's going to be fine. I know that it's going to settle down. If anything, it's going to propel me forward and help me develop a new community in a new city that I wouldn't be able to develop if I stayed in Chicago. Right. And it's just something that I want to do and try out. So
I love it. And, it's amazing, because I think when you do stretch yourself and you go through those things, it's like, yes, it's shaking up the snow globe, but it would be easy to be fairly complacent and comfortable. Everything's working. Yet to get to the next level of development and growth in our lives, we do have to kind of jump off that cliff and keep going to that next level. Otherwise, what I call, we leave it on the table. And then later on, we question ourselves, like, what if I had have done this? You get the case of the what ifs. What if this, what if that, what if. And I don't want to live, and I coach my clients, and it sounds like you're the same, and don't live in what if. Live the best life you can possibly have now, and, really whatever it takes. And will you make mistakes? 100%. I hope you do. I hope you do. Like, I hope you make mistakes. I hope you fail, because it's just learning and growing to the next level and going through anything like that. Not that I hope you make mistakes, but I hope people take risks like that. So Congratulations for like shaking up the snow globe. You've done phenomenally for yourself, and you're really providing incredible leadership for people. How can people find you? So tell us.
Just one tidbit. If people are wondering how to shake things up, like when I was going away to go visit in Austin, I told my partner, I'm like, look, I'm going to hate everything about this city. I'm going to tell you that I don't like it. I'm going to tell you how nice Chicago is, how great Chicago is. Don't take that as I don't want to move. Take it as my body fighting against this decision.
Yeah.
And so if you feel yourself fighting against something really strongly, yes, explore it. Make sure that it's still a good thing for you, that you're going to grow towards it. But that's a really good symbol. That's a really good sign that like this could be something potentially that you need to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you want to learn more, if you want to learn more about the journey, how things end up when I move to, you can always send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm super active on it. Dr. Benjamin Ritter. If you want to find out more about Live for Yourself Consulting, it's literally just liveforyourselfconsulting.com. I also produce a ton of content on YouTube. Look me up, send me a message. I would love to have a chat with anyone that listens to this, hear about your takeaways, your thoughts, and just connect.
Yeah, and Benjamin, I see some alignment between our businesses. So I know we're going to continue to talk and chat in the future, especially as you make that move to Arizona and figuring things out. So thank you for being on the CoachC podcast today. This is Christine Nielsen with Contrast Results Group, and you are watching us on the YouTube channel, or you're listening to our podcast. You can find us on YouTube. Instagram is CoachC Official. LinkedIn is Christine Nielsen, and it's spelled the Danish way, Nielsen. Thanks very much for being with us today. Have a wonderful day.